Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Rosensweet and I am here today live to answer your questions that I've gathered, email, private message. Some of you posted them on in my Facebook group, Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet. And we're just going to get started. So if you're watching this and you would like to ask a question, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. And I'm just going to get going. First, I'll give you a little overview of what questions we're going to be answering today. So I've got a question from Amanda about helping a quiet 5-year-old stand up for himself. I've got a question from Michelle about a 4-year-old stealing. I've got a question from Kristen about a 6-year-old with really big meltdowns and aggression. And another question that's related, Sandra has a 3-year-old with really big feelings. And I've got Andrea's question, a competitive 4-year-old. I've got Anna's question, a sibling sharing issue, and Kaylin wants to know how to get a 2-year-old to cooperate, and Leah wants to know about co-sleeping transitions. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer those questions, and if you do have a question and you're watching this, hit like, let me know you're here. If you do have a question, pop it in the comments, and I will hopefully answer it at the end. Okay, Amanda says, any tips on how to help a 5-year-old quieter boy learn ways to stick up for himself and take breaks from peers who aren't being kind to him? Amanda, I think I would first of all just have a conversation with your son about how friends treat each other. And then you just need to coach him. I say just need to, like it's so easy. You need to coach him on just something simple he can say when he's not being treated kindly. He can say, I guess I want to differentiate though, if this is like a bullying situation, he should go to a grown-up for help. That's the number one thing. If there's something happening that, he's being singled out, targeted, he should go to a grown-up for help. If it's a situation of just friends who are, not letting him have a turn or something like that, he can say, it's my turn now, or I don't like that, or something like that. Just give him some little phrases depending on what the situation is. Give him some little phrases of what he can say, and you can practice with him. You can be, it depends on how sensitive he is about the subject. You can either do some role play where you're him and he's a mean kid, and you can practice, showing him what to say. If he's a little bit more sensitive, you could do stuffed animals, so it's a little bit, the situation is removed, but just do some coaching with him at home through role play, through your play with him, and letting him know what friends do with each other and what's good friendship behavior and what's not good friendship behavior, and give him some things to say, simple as, I don't like that, or please act kindly, or I'm just trying to think of what he could say. So it's a matter of coaching. And if that doesn't work, teach him to walk away, just like you said. Take a break. Just say, teach him to go find someone else to play with, or go talk to the teacher on the playground, or come and get a break with you if it's at a play date. And he will learn, and don't worry. This is like really normal, and a lot of quieter kids, it takes them a little bit longer to learn this, but you can help him. There are also great social skills books out there. If you, I'll try and remember, let's see, I'll make a note to pop those in the comments. If you think he needs more help than just with standing up for himself. Okay, I hope that helps, Amanda. Michelle has a question about her 4-year-old stealing. She says, how can we handle our son's current streak of stealing things from school and his classmates? He's always had a strong sense of wanting what others have. He'll check everything out, so they've talked to him. He's not really lying. He tells the truth when he fesses up when he's caught. And he's stealing just little things from school, and they're making him bring it back and apologize to the person, give it back when possible, and tell the teacher. So Michelle, I think you're doing everything right. I think, first of all, in a 4-year-old, I wouldn't worry about stealing. In an 8-year-old, I would worry more about stealing, although I'm not, if anyone's 8-year-old out there stealing, I'm not saying they have like serious problems or anything, but it's much more normal developmental behavior in a 4-year-old than it would be in an older kid. 4-year-olds are sort of the kings and queens of wishful thinking. They You know, you might ask a 4-year-old, have you brushed your teeth? And they say yes. They might even believe it themselves because they want it to be true. So a 4-year-old who sees something and can very easily talk themselves into wanting it and it being okay to take that. So I think you're doing exactly the right thing and having him just return it. No fuss, no muss, you know, not making him feel guilty about it, but just, that isn't yours. Let's bring it back to school tomorrow and give it back to the teacher or the child or whose everything it is. Just keep reinforcing that. At a certain point, he will stop when he realizes that he can't just keep things that he found at school. And also he might get a little bit older and get embarrassed about having to return it and apologize. The one thing I do want to urge you to do that I don't think is super obvious is that he has a strong sense of wanting what others have, which also is normal, but help him cry about how he can't have the things. So you love that thing that you stole so much and you wish that it was yours, but it wasn't, and it's so sad that we can't have everything. I think a lot of times as parents we're afraid to go to that to dig deep into the wanting things because we think it'll make the problem worse. But for a child to give up on wanting more or being greedy, and I'm not saying you're saying your child is like that, but that he has a lot that he wants that he doesn't get. Help him grieve that feeling of wanting what he can't have and really empathize with it. You know, you love that sparkly necklace that you saw and it was just sitting there and you wished it was yours and you wish you could have everything you wanted in the world. And just really, you know, give him his wish and fantasy. If you had $1 million, I bet you would buy all of this stuff, and then help him find the tears about not getting everything that he wants instead of pointing out everything that he does have, which is where we tend to go as parents. Is we want our kids to feel grateful about what they do have. But really, really, it's okay if he goes, I actually wrote about this at the holidays. It's really important for them to grieve the not getting everything they want. And that's how they learn to move on and learn that they'll be okay if they don't get everything they want. Okay, Michelle, I hope that was helpful. Next question is from Kristen, and also Sandra also asked about big feelings. Kristen's son is just turned 6, and Sandra's is 3.5, 3.5-year-old daughter. So Kristen says that her son is, she says that he's saying things like, I'm stupid, I hate myself, I want to kill myself, and threatening to hurt people in the family, and that he's punched and spat and having massive meltdowns. So she says she wants to cry, she gets angry when he's acting aggressively, and that there's also, she says there's a lot that's been going on in her household, medical issues and a move and a new sibling and just lots of stuff. So Kristen, you've identified this as an anxiety issue, and it could well be, but I also want to add another layer on here, or hopefully reveal another layer so that it might not feel quite so daunting, because I think that there's a lot you can do. And Sandra, I want this to apply to you as well, even though you're not having this sort of extreme reactions as Kristen might be having. So big feelings. Kids who are who don't get to cry regularly and laugh enough end up with what we call in peaceful parenting a really full backpack. So a full backpack means that they have emotions. So it's a metaphorical thing, right? Whatever we can't do with our feelings in the moment, we put them in our emotional backpack to carry around with us until we get a chance for these feelings to bubble up and be healed and processed and let go of, let the feelings pass through us. So if we don't process our feelings in the moment, we don't get a chance to, to feel them and move on. And it sounds like if, I think, Sandra, I'm actually not sure how old your other child is, but if your 3.5-year-old and Kristen, your 6-year-old, has a full backpack, that's going to result in aggression. So kids with full backpacks who don't get to cry regularly, they can get explosive. So it's as if those feelings are, what happens is the feelings that we try and keep down, the painful feelings, the fear, what I call in kids the tears and fears that don't get to come out, their backpacks just get, or their bodies, which is really what the emotional backpack is, just a metaphor for the body, get completely filled up with these feelings, and there's nowhere for them to go, and they start to bubble up. But that feels really scary to everyone, to small children, to adults. We go to great lengths to keep our feelings down and not feel them. So when they start to come up, it feels like we're under threat, and we can go into a fight, flight, or freeze mode. So what's happening with both of your kids is they're going into a fight mode. So those feelings start to come up. They feel vulnerable. They feel scared, and vulnerable, I guess, is the biggest thing. That they feel like they're under threat because those feelings are just so icky, and they actually feel really icky and bad in the body, and they feel like you feel out of control, and you feel like you could be even under attack. So when our brains have a feeling that we are under threat, we go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. So any child you're seeing who's going into fight mode is, it's those feelings that are starting to come up that are triggering the fight, flight, or freeze, because they feel so under attack. They feel under attack from their own feelings, and they really just want to keep those feelings back down. And so the best defense is a good offense. So the fight mode kicks in to protect them from those scary, vulnerable feelings, and they go into aggression. So what we have to do here is deal with the feelings that are underneath, those feelings that are in the emotional backpack. So your son, Kristen, needs to cry, and your daughter, Sandra, needs to cry. And the good news is they don't actually have to cry about it might be helpful to talk about all the things that were going on, and when the medical problems that were in your family and how frightening that was for your son. Maybe not yet. Maybe just right now you want to focus on safety and connection and empathy, and just building up all of the safety that you can build up, and have special time every day, laugh every day, empathy 24/7, really just all of the peaceful parenting tools. If you don't know what I mean by that, I'll actually make a note to link to an article that has sort of a good overview of what the tools of peaceful parenting is. And really just get to the point where your son can cry a lot. So, and also Sandra, we'll talk a little bit more about the hitting after I finish with Kristen's question, but really just your son needs to cry. He can cry over a skinned knee. He can cry over not getting to stay up late and watch another TV show. He can cry over, I don't know if he has a sister, but he can cry over his sister getting the last serving of ice cream. Like whatever it is, he just really needs to cry. And I know in the moment, it's really challenging for you to stay calm. You might want to look into my How to Stop Yelling at Your Kids course, the free e-course. I'll link to that too. And just really get some tips on how to regulate yourself in the moment, how to breathe, shift your energy, stay calm when you're being attacked. I know that's really hard because you're also moving into fight or flight when you're feeling like you're under attack. So it's really hard to stay calm, but just remember that he's having a hard time. He's not trying to give you a hard time. He's acting this way because the thinking part of his brain has gone offline, and he's just overwhelmed by the fight instinct of the fight or flight because of all those old big feelings coming out. And I think that's why you're seeing it getting worse and worse, because he's just getting more and more feelings. And then on top of that, the shame and the guilt for having acted badly to you guys and hurting people. So he just really needs to cry. And I think that the anxiety piece, it's interesting because I think that if I were you, I would work first on the full backpack, just because of the history that you shared with me of everything that's been happening and the progression of it getting worse. And in anxiety, though, the same thing applies, is that when kids feel like they're under attack because something's making them anxious, new situation, the unknown, worrying about their parent dying, or whatever those anxious feelings are, they can send a child into fight or flight the exact way that I just talked about. The feelings feel overwhelming, and they feel under threat, and they go into fight mode. So that they're very related. It's just, let's look at what the cause is of where those big feelings are coming from, and just really try and address the big feelings. Let's see. Sandra, with your question specifically about siblings and hitting, exact same full backpack issues, but a sibling rivalry focus this time, or rather root cause. So when your child, your 3.5-year-old, gets upset and hits his or her, hits her brother or sister, you know, you go close, you say, I see you're having such a hard time, but no hitting, and you do whatever you need to do to prevent the hitting at that point. You tend to the sibling, you know, are you okay? Depends on how hurt the sibling is, I guess. You don't scold the older child, you just, you set the limit, no hitting, hitting hurts. Tend to the victim, I call it the perpetrator and the victim. Tend to the victim, and then you go back to your 3.5-year-old. I don't know if it's older or younger, I'm sorry. And you'd say, and you tried all the right things. She says, we've tried connecting, telling her we won't let her hurt her sister, breathing, time-ins. Those things are all great, and those are great for in the moment. So you say, sit with me for a minute. You must be so upset to be feeling this way, or to be acting this way. I see, you know, you can tell your sister how you feel. You can tell me how you feel. I will always listen to your feelings. But really what I want you to remember is to go back to the backpack issue that I just talked about at great length, hopefully not too great of length. The backpack issue. If you're having this as a repeated situation, your daughter needs to cry more. She needs to empty her backpack. And if it's consistently a sibling thing, I would ask, how much one-on-one time is she getting with you? Is she getting that time with you to feel like she's still special and she's getting enough of you and enough with you? Or does she feel like you're a scarce resource and she's, you know, that sibling rivalry is coming up and making her have a full backpack? So look at that stuff. And as always, you guys, in these videos, if I'm not explaining it well enough or you still have questions, just hit me up with a comment in the video and I'll try and explain better. So that is what I have to say about full backpack stuff. Let's move on. And again, if you're watching and you have a question, feel free to pop it in the comments. Andrea says, oh, Andrea, I hope you heard everything about the full backpack because I think this does apply also for your son. So Andrea says, I have a 4-year-old son and he's extremely competitive. If he's not the fastest, tallest, oldest, he melts into a puddle on the ground and refuses to participate. She and her husband are competitive by nature, but she doesn't think that she brings that into the mix as much as her husband does. At first, the race or the challenge worked for things like who will brush their teeth first, who will finish those carrots, but it's gotten out of hand. Even his JK teacher mentioned that he seems to be letting his competitive nature get the best of him sometimes. It's causing him not to participate in activities he likes because he's gotten himself into a snit about something. He also cheats at games. She's tried talking to him about trying, and people are good at different things, but it's not sinking in. So when somebody's really, really competitive, it's because they feel that they're not good enough. So I would cool it with the competitive games, and maybe he can, yeah, I think I would just cool it with the competitive games for right now because I think that it is making him feel like he's only good if he wins, which, you know, if he didn't have so much natural competition, it can work pretty well with kids if they know you who can, but only if the grown-up always loses. So if you're watching this and you're not Andrea and you're like, well, I do that all the time, you just always make sure that your kid wins the race and you bumble and trip at the finish line and they always win, or they always manage to get dressed before you or eat their carrots first or whatever it is. And Andrea, I'm not saying that you caused this by doing that. I'm just saying cool that down for a little while. And really, what you have to do is get him laughing about losing. So I have pretend competitions where you always lose and you're like, you know, and I realize I just told you not to do the competitions anymore. So you're going to have to set them up in games that you play with him. So, you know, you're playing a roughhousing game where he's trying to get past you onto the couch and he always manages, and you are going to pretend to be the world's sorest loser ever. And you're going to say, I can't believe I lost again. You beat me. You'll never beat me again. I hate losing. And just, you know, maybe you don't want to get quite that close to home if he's sensitive about knowing that he has a trouble with losing, but really be like, get him just laughing about the fact that you've lost and you are like throwing a tantrum, like a pretend tantrum in a really jokey way. Get him to laugh about that. and really model making mistakes. I know that you said that you and your husband are both competitive. Generally, and I say this speaking from experience, people who are competitive and are also perfectionists. And I would like to say I'm fully recovering perfectionist, but I'm trying every day as a work in progress. Perfectionists generally, it's very hard for perfectionists to feel like they're not good at things, because those feelings are hard to bear. So the way to keep those feelings away is to just be the best of everything. So you have to help your son get really comfortable and okay with not being good at things, making mistakes, losing, which I know is why you're here asking this question. But he really needs to know that all of those big feelings that he's having, the feelings in the backpack that he's trying to keep down by just winning everything, because if he can win everything, he doesn't ever have to deal with feeling not good enough, second best, last place, all of those feelings that will threaten to swamp him, those feelings that are all in his backpack threatening to swamp him. If he can just win every time, he doesn't have to deal with those feelings about not being good enough. So get him laughing about losing, about you losing, or some stuffed animals or some sort of game that you can play with him where he can really laugh about that. And really start modeling mistakes. Whoops, I really messed that up. Let me try that again. And really help him to get to the feelings underneath. And when you say he ends up, what did you say? He ends up a puddle on the floor. Really milk that. If he ends up a puddle on the floor, I can't remember if that's exactly what you said. When he loses, just say to him with so much empathy and so much love, it is so hard to lose. You wanted to win so much. It is so hard. That might make him angry, because you're really starting to get close, and he might say, shut up or stop talking or don't say that. If he does, you're getting close to that sensitive spot where he just feels like his feelings are too much, and and it's really hard for him to bear. It's hard for him to bear those feelings of failure and loss and not being good enough and not being as good as he wants to be. So really help him sit with those feelings. Don't try and fix it. Don't say something like, but you almost did it, or you'll get it next time. Don't go there. Just stay with the feelings. Let him cry about the feelings. Encourage him to cry about the feelings. Encourage him to cry about not winning. And if you missed the beginning when I was talking about the full backpack, you're really trying to help him empty his backpack. It's really those feelings. He's just trying to keep those down by the, he doesn't want to feel not good enough. So he's just going to keep those feelings down by just winning at everything. Okay, Andrea, I hope that was helpful. Let me just see if I've got any questions here. Not so far. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3 more questions. They won't be as long, though, as the others that we just answered. Anna asks about her 3.5-year-old and what looks like greediness with food. She said she's pretty good about sharing toys, and that she'll find something else for her sister to play with, but she's really terrible at sharing food. I do think they're related, Anna. I do think that your daughter still feels like it's maybe some sibling rivalry stuff, actually. And I think you're doing all the right things, but she can eat as much as she wants when she's in full control of how she eats. So it's not because she's being restricted, which is great. That's the division of responsibility in feeding. You decide what she eats and she decides how much she eats. So you're doing great there. And it says particularly when her sister's having the same thing, she starts eating faster, grabbing more, and overstuffing. So she is having some real deep feelings here, I think, about feeling like there are not enough resources for her and her sister. So I want you to address it, not through this food thing, but address it through, I could never love anyone more than I could love you. Make sure that she's still getting special time with you. I think her sister is a younger sister. So special time, one-on-one. I could never love anyone more than I love you. You can do this candle demonstration that I think I've talked about in these videos before, where you demonstrate, you set up a candle for each member of the family, and mama, dad, 2 sisters, and you've got the mama candle, and you light it. You say mama's going to give some of her love to dad. Both candles are lit. Mama's going to give her love to sister. or maybe you're going to do your older daughter first. The candle's still lit. Mama's going to give her love to the other sister. And look, the love just increases. So you could do something like that with her. But also, back to the full backpack again, she just might need to cry about everything, or about specifically how hard it is to share you. That might really help, because I do think that this is a resource scarcity that you're seeing, and the resource, she's using food to represent it, but really it's likely about you, and that you're the scarce resource because her sister just wants everything. And I think also I wouldn't pay too much attention to it. You know, the more you're telling her not to stuff and not to eat fast, probably the more she'll increase that behavior. So of course you don't want her to choke, but really just kind of step back from that, see what happens when you're also doing the more time with you and helping her cry. And one more thing that you mentioned, she'll take a little, when she's asked to share a bite with her sister, I would just stop that. She's really resistant to it. Don't ask her to share her food at all. Her food is her food, just like her toys are her toys. Don't ask her to share, and just, you know, set that up that she doesn't have to share anything. And I think you'll find that she will get more generous as you're addressing it from the root cause, and also not asking her to share bites. She's still little. Okay. Second, and I'm losing my voice here. I'm gonna have some tea. Okay, Kaylin says, I feel like I use threats at times with my 2.5-year-old. What can I say instead of, if you don't do ... then X will happen, to get her to cooperate? Okay, so I love this. Oh, thanks. Lee says she loves my tulips. I should have put them in a nicer place. Somebody brought them for dinner the other night. So how do you get a 2.5-year-old to cooperate without threatening? Oh shoot, there's my dog, sorry. So I love this statement, and it's totally in line with peaceful parenting. And it is when, then. So it's not a threat, like if you don't do this, then you can't do this. It's when you put your seatbelt on, or when we buckle your seatbelt, then I'll give you the little box of raisins. Or when we have our teeth brushed, then we'll read 5 stories. So when, then. It's just, this is the progression. This is the way we do things in our family. When, then. So you're not threatening. You're just saying, when you do this thing that I expect you to do, or when you stop doing the thing that I don't want you to do, then we'll be able to do this. And it's just lovely because it's setting up the expectation that she's going to cooperate. And in terms of getting 2-year-olds to cooperate outside of that, anytime you can make it fun, you will get a 2-year-old to cooperate. Especially, it sounds like you might have a strong-willed 2-year-old. So make it fun. Pretend you're baby animals and you're like climbing up the stairs to go to your nest, or sing a special toothbrushing song when you're brushing teeth, or you know, I think we need 5 hugs and 5 kisses before we can do this thing that you don't want to do. So go for connection, make it fun, and really just remember when, then. And you're right that it is good to avoid threats, because you don't want to parent based on fear, because that really gets kids to do things because they're afraid of you and they're afraid of what will happen, rather than they're doing them out of their own free will because they know it's the right thing to do. So that's why when, then is so good, because you're giving them the chance to do what they want out of free will. Okay, last question. Yeah, sorry, I'm just chuckling at Lee's comment about my change in set. I did used to do these videos from my office, but a couple of people in my life who are super picky said that the books are too distracting and that it was too busy. So I've changed to my dining room. This is my dining room, and I forgot to straighten the pillows, but anyways, that's okay. So Leah, last question here. Leah says, peaceful approach to moving from co-sleeping to sleeping in one's own room. Her 18-month-old co-sleeps. She's not in a huge rush, but she'd like to start laying the groundwork. Okay, Leah, the best thing you can do to start that lay the groundwork is teach your 18-month-old to fall asleep without you touching him or her and without nursing to sleep. So right now, if you're like most 18-month-old co-sleeping kids, your child probably uses your touch or your boob if you're still night nursing to go back to sleep. And the transition to their own room won't be successful if they can't put themselves back to sleep after waking up. So I'm not saying that you'll be able to do this overnight, but you can do sort of a slow transition process to, instead of the boob, you're hugging and holding your child. And then instead of hugging and holding, you're patting them on the back. And then instead of patting on the back, you're holding hands. And then instead of holding hands, until they fall asleep, you're holding hands until they're almost asleep, and then you let go. So you want to slowly wean your child off the using you to go to sleep. And then I think you also need to wait, unless you're going to transition to a crib. I think most kids under 3 won't stay in a bed by themselves. They won't stay in the bed when you're trying to put them to sleep. I guess it depends on their temperament. But most 2.5-year-olds, once they realize they can get up out of bed, if you're not there and you're not there to stop them, they will pop up out of bed like little whack-a-moles. Not that you want to hit them on the head. You might sometimes in the middle of the night, but of course you wouldn't do that. But they will just pop back up. So unless you're transitioning to a crib, I wouldn't have a high expectation of your child staying in your bed, or sorry, in their bed by themselves. Another idea is do everything I said and then transition to a mattress on your floor. So they're sleeping near you, but not with you. And, 3 or 4 years old, I think you'll have no trouble getting your child into their own room in their own bed. And it's great that you're not in a rush, because then you can just do it really easily and nicely. I'll also put a great article by my mentor here about toddler sleep, which you might find useful. Okay, so that is the end of the questions that I have here, and thank you for joining me. I will do these Q&As on the last week of the month. I'm trying to do them once a month, so if you have a question for me, you can always send it to me and I'll make a note, or you can watch for my asks for questions on my Facebook page. And if you are watching this and you'd like to learn more about peaceful parenting, I'm Sarah Rosensweet. My website is sararosensweet.com, and I do have a Facebook group that you can join. It's really lovely, filled with lots of supportive parents all on this journey. It's Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet. So I will see you in Facebook, and I will see you soon. Thanks for being here. Okay.